Welcome to Mrs. Law's class. In this video, I'm going to review with you how to solve a quadratic equation. Now, for quadratic equations, there are two main methods for solving. The first one we're going to take a look at is solving by factoring. So in order to solve by factoring, we're going to use something called the zero product property. So zero product property. And this states that if the product of two real numbers is 0, then one or both of the numbers must be 0. So for example, if I have a times b, and then, if a times b equals 0, then we know that either a has to equal 0, or we know that b equals 0, or both a equals 0 and b equals 0. So this should make sense since one of the numbers has to equal 0 since the answer will be 0. So in these examples, let's say we're going to solve for x. We know that x minus 2 times x plus 7 equals 0. So either the first factor, x minus 2 equals 0, or we have the second factor, x plus 7 equals 0. So we're going to solve these two simple equations, and we're going to add 2 to both sides. So x equals 2. And the second one, we're going to subtract 7 from both sides, and x equals negative 7. Okay, similarly, in this next question, we have 2x minus 3. So this equals 0. Or we have 3x plus 1 equals 0. So we solve our simple little equations again. We get 2x equals 3, divide both sides by 2, and x equals 3 over 2. Similarly, for the second one, 3x equals negative 1, divide both sides by 3, x equals negative 1/3. So both of these have two solutions, and you can see that it's because there's two x's. Now in this last one, we see that still there are two x's. So we have this first factor here, which is 8x. So 8x equals 0, divide both sides by 8, so x is equal to 0. And we have the second factor, x minus 5 equals 0, so x has to equal 5. In these examples, I already had it factored for you, so let's take a look at ones where they're not factored. So we'll take a look at 3 here. So determine the roots. Remember that roots is another way to say zeros, which is another way to say solutions, or in our case, x-intercepts. So here we have x squared minus 10x plus 25 equals 0. We can factor this, and we want to find two numbers that multiply to 25 and adds to negative 10. Now, if you don't remember how to factor, you can watch one of my other videos that show you how to factor. So in this case, the two numbers are negative 5 and negative 5 because they multiply to 25, and negative 5 plus negative 5 is negative 10. So our only solution here is x equals 5. You don't have to write 5 twice because they're the same number. All right, the second one is it's a difference of squares. So we can go x minus 4 and x plus 4, and then that equals 0. And then we have plus, and we have minus 4 as our solution. Now you can actually also think of this as x squared, and moving the 16 to the other side, we can go x squared equals 16, and then we can square root both sides. So when we square root both sides, don't forget we also get the plus or minus 4. All right, the last one here, we're going to move all the terms to one side, 3x squared minus 2x minus 8 equals 0, and I'm going to factor. And I'm going to kind of do a crisscross method, but I also know that the only numbers that multiply to 3 are 3 and 1. And I'm going to guess, so I want two numbers that multiply to negative 8. And so I'm going to pick 4 and 2. And I can see that this will give me 6, and this will give me 4. And because I want negative 2, the bigger of these two numbers has to be negative. So we want negative 6, and then plus 4 will give me negative 2x. So my two solutions are negative 4/3 and 2. Okay, sometimes you can't use factoring to solve. So I'm going to show you the second method of solving, and that's by using the quadratic formula. So what you want to do is move all the terms to one side. So you have ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So you want it in this form. And then you can solve for x using the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula is x is equal to negative b, so our middle coefficient, plus or minus the square root. And this will be b squared minus 4 times a times c, and then all of this is divided by 2 times a. All right, so let's try this. So we have 2x squared minus 5x plus 3. We probably can factor, but I'm going to show you how to solve this using the quadratic formula. So I have x equals, and so it's negative b, so it's going to be negative 5, so it'll be plus 5 plus or minus square root, and it'll be negative 5 all squared minus 4 times 2 times 3. And all of this is divided by 2 times a, which is 2 times 2. Okay, so simplify everything in the square root. Okay, so you can take out a calculator if you want, but we have negative 5 squared, so it's 25 minus, and then 8 times 3 is 24, so it's going to be 1 all over 4. And then we have x is equal to 5 plus or minus 1. So what we can do is we're going to go 5 plus 1 divided by 4. And we're going to go 5 minus 1 divided by 4. So here we get 5 plus 1 is 6. 6 over 4, which reduces to 3 over 2. 5 minus 1 is 4 over 4, which reduces to 1. So there are my two solutions. All right, let's try another one together. I'm actually going to jump down to number 3 here. So again, we're going to go x equals, so negative 2, so it's positive 2 plus or minus b squared, so negative 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 4. Draw my square root button longer, or sorry, my square root symbol longer. All of that will be divided by 2 times 1. All right, so if you don't want, you can also just write this as 2, because we know 2 times 1 is 2. All right, so we have 2 plus or minus, and we're going to simplify everything in the square root. And negative 2 squared is 4, and then negative 4 times negative 4 is 16. So 4 plus 16 is 20. All of this is divided by 2. Okay, now I do want to simplify my radical. This one doesn't square root, but we can change this to 2 plus or minus. And we know that 20 is equal to square root of 4 times the square root of 5. So one of them is a perfect square, and we can square root 4, which is 2. So this will be 2 plus or minus 2 root 5 all over 2. And we can simplify one more step because we can see that all of these 2's can reduce. Now remember, when we reduce, they become 1. Okay, so this is the same as saying 2 over 2, which is 1, plus or minus 2 root 5 over 2, which is also 1. So I get 1 plus or minus the square root of 5. So this would be our exact answer. If you wanted to get the calculator or the decimal answer, you can go 1 plus root 5 on your calculator, and then 1 minus root 5 on your calculator. So this is how we can solve quadratic equations by factoring and also using the quadratic formula.